Hey guys! Tonight we drift softly into the clouds above Mount Olympus, where divine tempers run hot, but the marble floors stay cool. You find yourself in a room with ceilings so high they echo thoughts, walls carved with scenes of epic drama, and the faint scent of olive oil and lavender wafting from a gold-trimmed brazier. This isn't just any celestial chamber, it belongs to Hera, Queen of the Gods, Goddess of Marriage. And tonight, your unusually assertive bedtime guide. She's lounging on a couch shaped like a crescent moon, swirling a goblet of nectar and glaring at a scroll longer than a sea serpent. The scroll, you realize, is a list of every Olympian deity who refuses to settle down, refuses to pair off, or worst of all, has tried dating a mortal bard again. A long sigh escapes her lips. Clearly, she's about to make some adjustments. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're at it, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I bet it's later than you expected. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're handed a quill and a blank scroll. Hera's idea of internship. No pressure, but you're about to help a literal goddess fix love itself. She snaps her fingers, and the scroll unrolls in a puff of rose-scented mist. Names begin to shimmer into view. Hermes, chronically flirtatious. Artemis still refuses to RSVP. Dionysus, engaged. Again, and at the top, in an angry red circle, Zeus, do not touch. You ask somewhat foolishly why Hera's even doing this. Shouldn't divine love just, happen naturally? She laughs like you just tried to explain TikTok to a tortoise. Left alone, she mutters, they marry mortals. Goats or trees? I have standards. One scroll catches her eye, edged in gold leaf. It's Hephaestus, her son, the famously cranky blacksmith. Needs someone gentle, she muses, but immune to molten sarcasm. She scribbles, potential match, Gorgon librarian. You blink. Did she just say Gorgon? She rises. Her gown flows like liquid marble. Her earrings glint with the constellations of the southern sky. Come, she says, motioning for you to follow. Love doesn't fix itself. As you trot behind her down a hallway lined with portraits of ex-lovers turned into shrubs, you learn something crucial. Hera isn't just a goddess of marriage. She's Olympus's unpaid emotional laborer. Every year, she conducts an informal audit of godly relationships, who's thriving, who's ghosting who, and who's still emotionally unavailable after the fall of Troy. She adjusts little things, a sudden breeze that blows someone's toga just right, a dream that plants a new idea, a goat that interrupts a proposal at the worst possible moment. Historians still argue, she says, almost offhandedly, whether the gods feel love like mortals do, or whether it's all performance. Then she winks, but even performance requires a good director. You reach her side chamber. It's filled with matchboxes, literal golden boxes, each labeled with a god's name. Inside each, a handful of sacred items tied to someone they once loved, or tried to. You open the box marked Poseidon and find a seashell, a dried kelp braid, and, curiously, a pearl shaped like a teardrop. His mermaid phase, Hera mutters, tragic. Salt water doesn't mix with commitment. In the corner is a harp, strung with moonlight. Aphrodite left that behind after a spat with Ares, Hera explains. She insisted she'd only fall for poetry after that. Unfortunately, she didn't specify good poetry. There's a lot to sort through. And now you're beginning to understand, Olympian romance isn't so much mythic as it is wildly inefficient, like a divine group chat where no one responds but everyone reads the messages. The torchlight flickers. Somewhere in the distance, a satyr is trying to play romantic flute music through a clogged nose. You make a note to remind Hera, no more flutes at matchmaking dinners. Back in her chamber, she consults her enchanted chalkboard. Arrows point between gods and mortals, some crossed out, others glowing. We'll start with the easy ones, she says, circling Hermes' name, and by easy, I mean deeply chaotic. As the candle wax pools beside you, Hera whispers, you'll need rest. Tomorrow, we begin with Zeus. You lie back on a cloud-stuffed cushion and feel yourself drifting. heart beating to the rhythm of divine complications. One last thought echoes. You're helping the most judgmental, overqualified matchmaker in existence. Sleep tight. Zeus is already waiting when you arrive at the east-facing balcony garden, standing like he owns the morning sunlight, which, in his defense, he sort of does. His beard looks extra stormy today, and the clouds above shift awkwardly, like they know something's about to be requested and want no part of it. Hera doesn't make eye contact. Instead, she adjusts her diadem with deliberate indifference and offers him a slice of pomegranate, which he declines, an early sign of guilt in most Olympian body language guides. You don't say anything, just hover near the celestial flower pots and try not to sneeze from the lavender pollen. Zeus clears his throat. I need your help, he begins, as if those words don't shatter stars every time they leave his mouth. Hera raises an eyebrow. With what? Another mortal girl who turns out to be a swan on weekends. He winces. No, this is more delicate. You lean in. Turns out, there's a situation developing among the younger gods. Those second-tier Olympians who didn't make the statue shortlist but still throw their weight around at wine festivals. They've started forming weird romantic clusters. Not love triangles, more like trapezoids. Two of them just eloped with the same dryad. Another thinks they're soul-bound to a weather nymph who only appears during cold fronts. Zeus sighs like someone who spent millennia babysitting lightning-addled relatives. It's creating divine HR issues. He mutters, I can't have minor gods starting turf wars over mistletoe. Hera sips her nectar, unimpressed. And you want me to clean it up? Zeus nods. You're the only one they listen to, or fear. Same thing. Really? She doesn't answer immediately. Instead, she slowly turns to you. You're documenting this, right? You hold up your scroll, the ink still drying beside the words. Zeus, romantic crisis manager, in denial. Hera finally nods. Fine, I'll do it. But you owe me. Zeus tilts his head. A favor? No, she says. 2 days of not turning into any kind of bird. There's a long silence. Even a peacock, he asks hopefully. One feather, and I start matching you with Hecate. Zeus actually shudders. Understood. You're now officially part of the divine cleanup crew, and the first name on the list, Aphrodite. Because if anything goes sideways with love, start with the goddess who once declared war over a golden apple. You ask Hera how she'll even begin. She just smirks. First, we visit Dodona. You've heard of the place, the oldest oracle in Greece, famous for its sacred grove where oaks whisper the future in rustling leaves. But you didn't know the oak trees sneeze loudly. The trip is quick. Olympian teleportation powered by passive-aggressive sighs and grape-scented mist. You arrive in a grove where the trees hum quietly, their trunks spiraled with bronze runes. An elderly priestess waddles out of the temple, sneezes once, then nods as though a major prophecy has just occurred. We need insight. Hera says, on divine entanglements. The priestess walks straight into a tree, mumbles something about goats and dreams, and vanishes. You look at Hera. She'll be back. She assures you the oaks are moody this season. You hear a loud crack from above. A branch drops, written in sap across the bark. Beware the goat who knows too much. You blink. Hera squints. That's unusually specific. Historians still argue whether the Oracle of Dodona was genuinely divine or just an elaborate excuse to spend decades deciphering tree allergies. Another rustle, this one clearer. The oaks say, begin with Aphrodite, but never trust Hermes with poetry. Noted. Hera says, let's head back. As you prepare to leave, you glance back at the oaks. One is shaking with what can only be described as leafy laughter. Fringe scholars once believed that Dodona's trees were possessed by bored spirits from abandoned city-states. Former politicians who'd rather haunt forests than explain tax reform. You're beginning to suspect they weren't wrong. Back on Olympus, Hera drafts a plan. We'll start soft. She says, a social intervention. Aphrodite thinks love is a competitive sport. Let's remind her it's more like a very, very long board game. Zeus has vanished again, probably into cloud form. You ask Hera why she bothers. She doesn't answer at first, just walks over to her scroll cabinet and pulls out a dusty one titled Pairings That Almost Worked. On it, underlined in silver, are names of long-forgotten gods and nymphs, mortals and muses, even one pairing between a centaur and a muse of taxation. Hera traces her fingers over the list because, she finally says, someone has to believe it's worth getting right. Even if it's all a mess, you don't press further. You're already dreaming of trapezoids, sneezing trees, and a goat with far too many secrets. You wake up to the sound of clinking anklets and the scent of sea foam and rosewater. Aphrodite is already waiting at the reflecting pool, lounging with the kind of posture that takes decades of practiced indifference. She's fanning herself with a seashell the size of a dinner plate and looking positively bored with immortality. When Hera strides in, the temperature drops by a few degrees, just enough to make a point. Aphrodite sighs, without looking up. Please tell me you're not here to lecture me about that again. Hera sits down next to her, smoothing her robes, and gestures for you to keep a respectful distance, just far enough to not get caught in the crossfire. You try to pretend you're interested in a nearby hydrangea. No lectures, Hera says sweetly. Just a proposal. Aphrodite groans. If this is about the golden apple incident, I apologized. Eventually, it's not. Hera replies, though you did swear an oath on your eyeliner not to cause another war over compliments, that eyeliner was limited edition. You resist the urge to laugh. Barely. Hera continues, unfazed. We've noticed your current entanglements are creating divine inefficiencies. Too many suitors, too much confusion, and frankly, too many anonymous love notes tied to flamingos. Aphrodite shrugs. What can I say? I'm irresistible. I have a brand to maintain. Hera hands her a scroll. This is a list of potential suitors, actual ones, not enchanted mortals with loot addictions or demigods who think charisma is a personality. Aphrodite raises one eyebrow. Is Hephaestus on this list? He's busy, Hera says vaguely, avoiding eye contact. You scribble this in your notes under Hephaestus. Likely doomed to another romantic experiment, Aphrodite glances over the scroll, muttering names like she's reading the world's worst dating app. Hades, too moody. Apollo, tried that he kept composing music about himself. Dionysus, only in festival season. You ask tentatively what exactly Aphrodite wants in a partner. She considers this for a moment. Someone quiet, loyal, slightly mysterious, maybe cursed, with a tragic backstory. So basically, a Greek novel wrapped in a toga. Historians still debate, Hera murmurs, whether Aphrodite genuinely longs for connection or just enjoys the chaos of pursuit. Why not both? Aphrodite chirps. Before the conversation can spiral into another wine-fueled lament about the death of romance in modern pantheons, Hera makes a suggestion, a carefully staged, accidental encounter at an upcoming celebration. The Feast of Ambiguous Revelations. It's vague enough that most gods attend just to see what happens. We'll invite a few key figures. Hera says, limit the drama. No exes, no flames, no one currently cursed. Aphrodite yawns. Fine, but only if I get to wear that gown. You're pretty sure that gown causes minor tidal waves whenever it's worn near a coastline. Fringe scholars once wrote of such garments woven from sea mist and harpstring fashion as spellcraft, stitched by Nereids who retired from prophecy because the workload was better in retail. Whether that's true, no one can agree, but the dress in question definitely glows. Later, as you help Hera prepare invitations, each sealed with a kiss of starlight and a hint of myrrh, she leans in. Aphrodite's harder to pair than most. She says she doesn't believe love is real, just fashionable. You ask why she's still trying. Because the gods forget, Hera says softly, that even we were once afraid to be alone. You walk together to the edge of the balcony, where Olympus touches cloud. Below, the mortal world hums along, unaware of how close it came to receiving a flamingo-sent poem from a drunk wine god. The wind carries up a faint note, probably from Apollo's latest heartbreak. It's not great. You glance at Hera. So what's next? She smirks. Poseidon and his waterlogged obsession. The air around you ripples slightly, like reality bracing itself. Poseidon's crushes are notoriously messy, sometimes literally, but for now, you rest. The sun dips behind a column, shadows grow long, and your thoughts drift back to Aphrodite's list. The strange allure of tragic backstories, and that faint scent of sea foam and rosewater still clinging to your robe. Poseidon greets you with a wave. Not the hand kind, the actual ocean kind. You're soaked by the time you step foot on his marble sea terrace, perched somewhere between reality and whatever mood he's in that morning. The floor is slick with seawater, conch shells line the walls, and a lobster in a tiny helmet salutes you as you pass. Poseidon is pacing, trident in hand, beard glittering with salt crystals. I love her. He declares to no one in particular, like deeply, like monsoon season deep. You don't have to ask who. Hera already told you, another river nymph. Her name is Aegle. She has the kind of eyes poets get blamed for, and the ability to vanish into mist whenever commitment is mentioned. Poseidon's been writing her messages in seashells and floating them downriver. You suspect she's been using them as coasters. Hera arrives 10 minutes late, trailing ocean fog like it's a shawl. We need to talk, she says, stepping neatly over a flopping fish. This obsession is making the tides erratic. Poseidon scoffs. Love is erratic. You note that down. Poseidon, king of waves, master of melodrama. He gestures dramatically toward the sea. Every morning, I carve her name into the sand with a conch. Every evening, the tide washes it away. It's symbolic or repetitive. Hera offers, how long has this been going on? Poseidon counts on his fingers, then his toes, then loses track. You decide not to mention that mortals downstream have been blaming this whole affair for unpredictable flood cycles. Hera sighs. Look, I'm not saying she's not river charming, but she's clearly not interested. She turned into a fog bank when I proposed. Poseidon admits, there it is, Hera says, snapping her fingers. That's the red flag. Historians still argue whether Poseidon's love life was truly tragic, or just a long series of poor judgment calls disguised as sea epics. Fringe tablets from Euboea even suggest he once tried to marry an island. Like, the whole thing. It declined politely. We need to distract him. Hera whispers to you later. As Poseidon scribbles a waterlogged haiku on a dolphin, you suggest an event. A mixer. Something light, no pressure, no commitment. Just other options. Hera's eyes glint. A beach party. A divine one. Obviously, with ambient shell music, constellation-shaped lanterns, and a buffet of seaweed tapas. Poseidon agrees instantly, mostly because he thinks Aegle might show up. Spoiler, she won't. The party prep is chaotic. You spend 3 hours trying to convince a crab choir to harmonize and not pinch each other. Hermes volunteers to DJ, but you have a bad feeling about that. The event begins at twilight. The sky is smeared with lavender, and gods start drifting in literally, some on breezes, others on beams of moonlight. Aphrodite arrives via swan-drawn chariot, because of course she does. Poseidon is already nervously adjusting his kelp tunic. You casually place him next to a minor ocean deity named Thalia Gorgeous, grounded and not prone to disappearing into mist. She and Poseidon bond instantly over barnacle-based grooming routines. You even catch him laughing, not monologuing for the first time in weeks. But just as things start flowing like the punch bowl, which may or may not be made from fermented starfish, someone brings up Aegle. Poseidon goes quiet. I just thought she'd come, he murmurs, looking out at the horizon. You glance at Hera. She gives you a slight nod and approaches him. Some waves return. She says gently. Others break once and never again. It's not your fault. You hear the sea calm. A shooting star glides overhead, and a few gods clap politely, because even meteors are expected to perform here. As the party winds down, Poseidon lingers by the tide line, chatting with Thalia. You leave him be. You ask Hera, do you think it'll work out? She shrugs. Maybe. Or maybe he'll try to marry an iceberg next month. That's the thing about love, it's never stable, which is exactly why it matters. You walk together back to the edge of Olympus, the scent of sea salt still in your hair, and the faint sound of Hermes remixing harp music echoing behind you. Above, the stars blink. Below, Poseidon finally lets go of a name he once carved in sand. You hear him before you see him. Hermes barrels into the council atrium riding a messenger wind like it's a skateboard. Trailing scrolls, shoe feathers, and one very confused pigeon. I have arrived, he announces, and I may have done something hilarious. Hera pinches the bridge of her nose. Tell me it doesn't involve poetry. Oh, it does. He grins, flopping dramatically across a marble bench. But it's the wrong poetry. delivered to the right people. Or maybe the other way around. You raise your hand. What does that mean? Hermes twirls a quill like a dagger. So, remember those love letters we were sending out to stir the pot gently? I may have intentionally swapped a few. You glance at Hera, bracing for impact. To whom? She asks. Let's see. Hermes says, unrolling a scroll, Apollo received Dionysus's romantic ode to the echo spirit. Now he thinks he's being wooed by a vine. Dionysus got Aphrodite's rejection speech, and he's been crying into grapes. Artemis accidentally received a note meant for Hades, and now thinks she's being stalked by shadows. Oh, and Hephaestus got a blank one, which he's interpreting as symbolic of emotional absence. You don't know whether to laugh or hide. Historians still debate, Hera mutters, whether Hermes was a clever trickster or just Olympus's eternal chaos intern. You're welcome, Hermes says, taking a bow. Hera doesn't even blink. Fix it. But it's so interesting now. He protests. We're getting honest reactions, real feelings. Dionysus wrote a breakup song for a bottle of wine. I'll bottle you, Hera says sweetly. You follow Hermes as he glides off to clean up his poetic mess, which mostly involves sneaking into temples and swapping scrolls while blaming nearby goats. You assist, barely. First stop, Apollo's sunroom. He's pacing in a bathrobe made of golden thread, clutching the mistaken love letter like it's a prophecy. I think I'm being courted, he says dramatically. But by who? The vine won't reveal their name. It's a metaphor. Hermes says, deadpan. You were chosen for your photosynthesis potential. Apollo narrows his eyes. Is this because I criticized your sandals? You yank the scroll from his hand and slip in the correct one. An invitation to the feast of ambiguous revelations. Apollo, naturally, assumes it's a trap. But he's intrigued. Mission, half accomplished. Next up, Dionysus. You find him floating in a hot spring filled with melon slices and regret. I thought she understood me, he moans, cheeks wine-stained. But then boom, a rejection letter. You check the letter. Yep. Aphrodite's handwriting, accidentally redirected by one winged sandal misstep. Hermes offers him a replacement, a party invite. There'll be grapes, he adds. Dionysus perks up. Will they be emotionally available grapes? Absolutely. You lie. Then comes Artemis. This one is trickier. You find her in the forest, sharpening a silver blade against a moonlit stone. She doesn't look up. Tell me why a shadow offered to guard my heart. Male error. Hermes says quickly, you delivered a letter meant for Hades. She asks coolly. It had his name on it. In your defense, you both use gloomy metaphors and loiter in the woods. Artemis considers decapitating Hermes for a moment, then she sighs. Just don't involve me again. You hand her a new scroll, extra blank, extra neutral. It contains only one sentence. Your presence is enough. You hope that's safe. She pockets it without reading. Finally, Hephaestus, you find him in his forge, sparks flying, hammer crashing, the air thick with iron and unresolved maternal tension. Hermes nervously waves, how's the letter? It was empty. Hephaestus grunts, void of affection. Classic. You exchange a glance with Hera, who's just arrived. I wrote you something, she says softly. Holding out a new scroll, Hephaestus opens it. It reads, you're not broken. You just burn hotter than the rest of us. Maybe someone else needs that warmth. There's a long pause. Then, quietly, thanks, Mom. You pretend not to hear that. Later, you sit on a stone bench beside Hera, watching the stars arrange themselves into subtle emojis. She leans back, exhausted but pleased. Sometimes, she says, you just need to shuffle the letters and hope no one notices the typos. You nod, thinking of Dionysus's grape song and Artemis's silent approval scroll somewhere in the distance. Hermes delivers one final note, this time correctly. Probably, the gods are calmer tonight, maybe just for a moment. But sometimes that's enough. The goat is waiting for you. No, really, at the edge of Hera's courtyard, beneath a fig tree humming with late summer bees. There stands a goat with one golden horn, a knowing squint, and what appears to be a tiny velvet cape. You pause. It chews slowly, dramatically. Hera catches up and stops dead. Oh no, she mutters. It's back. You ask carefully what it is. That, Hera sighs, is Alcmaeon. He was once a minor prophetic spirit. Then Hermes turned him into a goat on a dare. He's been leaking secrets ever since. Alcmaeon gives you a polite bleat and trots off toward the olive grove, glancing over his shoulder as if to say, "Follow me if you want spoilers." You do. The goat leads you down a winding path beneath trees, heavy with ripe fruit. Every few paces, he stops, scratches the ground, and somehow writes words in the dirt with his hoof. It takes a moment to read them, but they're unmistakable. Hera's plan is unraveling. You frown. How do you even? Alcmaeon stamps once, then trots on. The next message appears beneath a pomegranate bush. Too many entanglements. Something is watching. You call Hera, who arrives looking half annoyed, half concerned. He's being cryptic again. She mutters. Last time he predicted the great olive oil shortage of 300 BCE. But what's he warning us about? The goat hops onto a boulder, strikes a heroic pose, and delivers a long, raspy bleat that echoes unnaturally. You don't speak goat, but Hera nods grimly. He says someone's tampering, shuffling the pairings, nudging fate in directions I didn't authorize. That's not good. Historians still argue. Hera says, watching the goat dramatically faint for no reason. Whether Alcmaeon was ever truly gifted or just extremely lucky with his guesses. Fringe theories claim the goat is secretly the reincarnation of a forgotten god of inconvenient truths. Other scholars insist he's just Hera's way of externalizing anxiety. Either way, he's got a following. One satyr even made a shrine out of acorns and chewing gum. You follow Alcmaeon into the temple archives. Dust swirls, scrolls shift, and on one parchment, you see it a rewritten pairing chart. Someone's tampered with Hera's master list. Pairings she never approved now glow faintly in celestial ink. Ares is linked to a river sprite who hates violence. Persephone's scroll now says reassigned, but no name follows. This isn't my work. Hera growls, someone's matchmaking behind my back. You both glance at each other. Eros. You suggest, maybe. Hera frowns, or worse, a committee. The goat lets out a low, warning bleat. Then he charges into a wall and disappears behind a tapestry. Classic. Back at her chambers, Hera lights a bowl of frankincense and starts divining with olive pits. One pit rolls into the shape of a heart. Then it splits. Then one half levitates and hums. That's not good, she mutters. You're now officially involved in a divine conspiracy. The matchmaking isn't just messy, it's being manipulated. But by whom? Hera drafts a list of suspects. Eros. Smug. Winged. Never trustworthy. Aphrodite. Jealous. Bored. Both. The Fates. Bored. Chaotic neutral. Hermes. Always guilty by default. The goat. Possible mastermind. As you ponder, Alcmaeon returns, dragging a scroll in his teeth. It's damp, a little torn, but still legible. On it, match Apollo with the Gorgon librarian. You stare at Hera. That's not a mistake. She whispers. That's a trap. You roll up the scroll carefully. Outside, thunder rumbles not Zeus level, but the kind that makes temples shift slightly in their foundations. We need to accelerate the plan, Hera says, and keep a closer eye on everyone. Alcmaeon bleats dramatically, then curls up on your foot and falls asleep. Snoring like a haunted kettle, you sit in silence, the scent of ash and fig filling the air. The gods are no longer just falling in love. They're being herded. Apollo is tuning his lyre when you arrive. Not metaphorically, he's literally plucking each golden string with the obsessive focus of someone who once cursed an entire village because their acoustics were bad. It's the strings, he mutters. They're off, or the moon's in retrograde, or someone hexed my calluses. You offer him a polite smile and a scroll. He eyes it. If this is another poem from a sea sponge. I'm out. You reassure him. This is from Hera, an invitation to a casual artistic gathering at the Olympian Forum, featuring music, light matchmaking, and 0 magical sponges. He narrows his eyes. Define light matchmaking. You gesture vaguely, more like curated ambiance. Curated, Apollo repeats. You mean rigged. He's not wrong. Still, he shows up. The Olympian Forum gleams with polished marble, the scent of baked figs and rosemary drifting from invisible hearth. The event is hosted under an enchanted dome that mirrors the night sky, but slightly prettier. You're adjusting the guest scroll when Apollo struts in, wearing a tunic woven from starlight and overconfidence. He's followed unexpectedly by a cloaked figure carrying a stack of books bound in snakeskin. Hera whispers, "That's her." You blink. "That's who?" "The Gorgon librarian." You glance at the guest scroll. No name. Just special entry, reserved by fate. The Gorgon lifts her hood slightly, revealing calm green eyes, marble gray skin, and a very polite expression, except for the faint hiss of a snake curling behind her ear. Apollo, to his credit, does not faint. He just swallows his pride and extends a hand. "I'm Apollo, god of..." "I know," she says gently. "You left a scroll in my library once. It was mostly shirtless drawings of yourself." Apollo turns faintly gold in the cheeks. "Ah, they sit." She removes a small book from her satchel. Apollo glances at it. Intrigued. "You read Ovid?" he asks. She smirks. "Only the messy parts." They talk and talk. You lose track after the third liar metaphor. Hera nudges you. "We might actually have a hit." You nod. "So, who invited her?" "That's the problem." Hera whispers, "I didn't." Historians still debate whether this fabled Gorgon librarian ever truly existed or was a later invention of Hellenistic bards trying to make literature sexy again. Some scrolls mention her under different names. Menexi, the Forgotten One. Others simply refer to her as she who shelves secrets. You wander away from their quiet conversation and into the courtyard, where Alcmeon the goat is attempting to eat a torch. "Stop that," you whisper. He bleats and drops another scroll from his mouth. This one reads, "The Gorgon holds the key, but she doesn't know it yet." You glance back at her. She's laughing now. One of the snakes on her head playfully slaps Apollo's wrist when he tries to rhyme nymph with limp. Hera approaches slowly. Someone moved her into the circle, quietly, like a chess piece. You think of the tampered pairings, of the whispers in Dodona, of the goat's scattered warnings. Someone is guiding these unions. Hera's eyes narrow. Not just fate, someone's editing fate. You ask if it could be Eros. "No," she says. "He's chaotic, not strategic." This is methodical. As the music drifts into quieter melodies, and the enchanted dome above turns from night to deeper night, Apollo reaches for this Gorgon's hand. She lets him. The moment is soft. No sparks, no thunder, just stillness. You wonder if that's what real connection looks like. Silent understanding in a world of loud performances. Later, Hera finds you near the fig tree. Do you trust the outcome? She asks, "I don't know yet." You say. She nods. "Neither do I." The goat snores beside you, mumbling something about alphabetized betrayal. The night closes around the forum. A match has been made, but the game is far from over. You hear them before you see them. The unmistakable thrum of tension, the high-pitched giggle of an arrow narrowly missing someone's toga, and the quiet hiss of divine eye contact held too long. You've arrived at a standoff. On one side of the fountain courtyard stands Hera, arms crossed, robes billowing like storm clouds in slow motion. On the other, floating slightly above the marble tiles, is Eros' golden curls, smug smile, and the kind of posture only a professional instigator can master. He twirls a love arrow between his fingers. "So," he says lazily, "I hear you've been stealing my job?" "It's not a job if you sleep through most of it." Hera replies evenly. Eros grins. "Ah, but when I do clock in, it's art." You step carefully between them, holding the list of tampered pairings in one hand, and a very suspicious arrowhead you found stuck in a scroll titled, "Do not marry a siren," in the other. "You've been busy," Hera says. Eros shrugs. "I had some free time. The muses are on retreat. Apollo won't let me DJ anymore, and your system was, let's say, uninspired." You point out the chaos. Dionysus nearly proposing to a reflection. Artemis threatening to hex the sky. Hephaestus convinced silence was a love letter. "That was you." "Please." Eros scoffs. "I just gave everyone a nudge. It's not my fault they're all emotionally flammable." Historians still argue, Hera says with a sigh, whether Eros was a force of nature or just a dangerous teenager with a bow. Fringe philosophers once posited that Eros wasn't even a god. but rather a curse-gifted form. Others claimed he was the universe's built-in romantic glitch, an eternal software bug with wings. Whatever he is, he's been tampering. Why? Hera asks. Eros spins slowly in the air. Ero now resting lightly across his collarbone. Because you forgot something. Queenie, you forgot the thrill. The accident. The maybe. You raise an eyebrow. You mean the mess. He nods. Same thing. Hera gestures, and a shimmering chart appears in the air. Names swirl, intersect, break apart. These pairings aren't yours to edit. Eros frowns. Maybe not. But they felt right. Poseidon needed someone weird. Artemis needed space. Dionysus honestly just needed a nap. You sent Persephone an unsigned sonnet made of pomegranate seeds, and she liked it. She choked on one. Hera snaps. There's a pause. Okay, Eros says. So maybe I overshot that one. You step in. Voice soft. Are you trying to help or trying to win? Eros looks at you for a long moment. Honestly, I don't know anymore. He drops the arrow. It clatters on the marble. Not gold, just wood. Chipped at the tip. A broken tool. A mistake. I used to believe in big love. He says, now I just try to keep people from feeling nothing at all. You're not sure if that's profound or sad? Possibly both. Hera sighs. You've made a mess. But some of it worked. Apollo and the Gorgon. Poseidon and Thalia. Even Artemis left alone, respected for her stillness, hasn't stormed off in a week. So now what? Eros asks. Hera thinks. We finish the matches. Together. No sabotage. No surprises. Eros hesitates, then nods. Fine. But I still get to host the next festival. Only if you don't use glitter arrows again. Compromise, he says. Fluttering upright. I'll only glitter the food later. As the sun dips behind the Acropolis and Olympus begins its sleepy golden hour glow, you sit beneath a fig tree with Hera, Alcmaeon. The goat is chewing on a sandal that might have once belonged to Hermes. You let him. So, Hera says, watching Eros flit around like a hummingbird with anxiety. You think this truce will last. You shrug. Until someone develops feelings they didn't plan for. She smiles. So, a day, maybe two. You watch Eros pause midair to adjust a constellation into a heart shape. It explodes. He laughs. You laugh too. For now, the gods are aligned. Not perfectly, not forever, but enough to try again. Hephaestus is hammering a star when you find him. Not metaphorically, he's literally reshaping a half-melted constellation that fell out of orbit after an argument between Aries and Sagittarius. Sparks fly around him like celestial fireflies. His forge glows red hot, and he looks exactly like someone who hasn't checked his divine inbox in a few centuries. You wait until he's set down the hammer and wiped the soot from his brow before handing him a scroll tied in silk. He snorts. Another rejection letter. Invitation. You say, to a library. He raises an eyebrow. You know what Hera usually sends me? Work orders, or very long silences. She's trying a new approach. He scoffs. Because her matchmaking project is falling apart. You shift awkwardly. He's not wrong. Hephaestus eyes the invitation again. Library. Huh. You nod. Quiet place. Books. Soft candlelight. The Gorgon works late shifts. That gets his attention. The Gorgon. He knows the one. Everyone does by now. Apollo's new almost maybe companion. But what Hera didn't tell you until this morning was that the Gorgon librarian has a sister. She catalogs forbidden scrolls. Hera explained. Barely speaks. Wears gloves to avoid accidentally petrifying her pens. You ask her name. Her friends call her Callista, though she has none. So here you are, watching Hephaestus debate a trip to a quiet library with a woman who could turn him to stone for sneezing too loudly. Eventually, he shrugs. Fine, but if she hisses, I'm leaving. Historians still debate whether this meeting ever occurred. Some say it was myth, a story whispered between lonely scribes at twilight. Others claim to have seen the melted stone bench where Hephaestus once sat too close to Callista's satchel of forbidden ink. What you see is this, a flickering candle-lit corridor, the smell of parchment and cedar, Hephaestus walking slowly down the aisle toward a cloaked figure copying a scroll by hand, the hiss of her snakes as they peer over her shoulder. The way she doesn't look up until he coughs softly. Sorry, he says, just here to browse. Callista nods without a word, gestures to a shelf, ancient scrolls, some glowing faintly, others chained shut. She holds out a single, unmarked one. Hephaestus frowns. "What's this?" She speaks quietly. "A list of things that have never been fixed." He runs his calloused fingers over the rough parchment. Sounds familiar. They sit at opposite ends of the table. She writes. He sketches something on a scrap of metal. It's silent. The good kind. You watch from a distance. Hera joins you. "Will this work?" You ask. She shrugs. "Maybe." They're both broken. But sometimes broken people speak the same language. You glance at her. "You match your own son with a cursed librarian. I matched him with someone who knows what it means to be feared for existing." You nod. "That tracks." The evening winds down. Hephaestus helps Callista relabel a shelf. She corrects his handwriting with a slow smile. One of her snakes wraps around his wrist once, then lets go. Progress. On the way back to Olympus, Hephaestus says nothing, but there's a scroll in his hand now, and a strange calm in his step. Hera notices. "Maybe the fates know what they're doing after all," she murmurs. "You don't mention the scribbled note Alcmeon left earlier. When stone and flame meet, the sky will crack? Seems like a tomorrow problem." Tonight, there's hope. Hope wrapped in awkward silences, overdue glances, and two people who never asked for soft things finally finding one. You return to your chamber with candle wax on your robes and soot on your sleeves. You don't clean it off. It feels like progress. You're awakened by a feather to the nose and a scroll to the chest. Eros stands over you, flapping his wings impatiently. "Emergency," he says. "Well, romantic emergency, but those still count, right?" You groan. "Define emergency." He flutters into the air, spinning theatrically. "Hera's doing a duel with me. Like an actual matchmaking challenge. She's calling it." He pauses dramatically. "The sacred pair-off." You blink. "That sounds made up." It is, but she's furious. So now it's canon. You find Hera already in the Temple of Echoes, preparing what appears to be a divine PowerPoint made of floating constellations. The stars blink nervously. One even explodes just to avoid being assigned. She wants a competition. Hera explains, flicking a star into place. "I prove I'm still the better matchmaker." He gets, what? Validation. Sparkles. Chaos cred. Eros floats in beside her, holding a bow in one hand and a heart-shaped pastry in the other. Winner gets naming rights over the next 10 couples. You're not naming another demigod thirsticles. Hera growls. You're still mad about that. You step back before divine beams start firing. The rules are simple. Well, divine simple. Both Eros and Hera must match one couple using only indirect influence. They cannot speak to or appear before the targets. No spells, no arrows, no bribes, just sheer persuasive fate. Historians still argue. Hera mutters, whether this duel ever actually happened, or was just a metaphor for divine pettiness. But the arena is real, a small mortal village near the foot of Mount Helicon. Two individuals, entirely human, utterly unknowing, are chosen. Hera selects Melina, a quiet potter with ash-smudged fingers and a habit of muttering Greek geometry under her breath. Eros selects Nikos, a shepherd who sings to his goats in falsetto and collects weird-shaped rocks. You and Hermes are sent to observe. Neutral party. Hera insists, also, if Eros cheats. I want receipts. The observation hut is a camouflaged fig tree. Hermes brings snacks. You bring anxiety. Day 1. Melina breaks a vase and throws it across the courtyard. It lands in Nikos's goat trough. He's charmed. She's horrified. 1 point Eros. Day 2. Hera causes a random rain shower that soaks both of them. They shelter under the same olive tree. Nikos offers his tunic. Melina declines. 2 floral. 1 point Hera. Day 3. Eros nudges a bird to drop a note. It's his own terrible poem, written in lightning bugs. Melina burns it. Negative. 1 point Eros. Day 4. Nikos leaves a weird-shaped rock on Melina's windowsill. She carves it into a vase handle. They don't speak, but they smile. Tiny, awkward, hopeful smiles. By day 5, you're invested. Hermes bets a thunderbolt that Hera wins. You bet 2 olives and a metaphysical headache that Eros pulls some last-minute stunt. Sure enough, on day 6, he tries. A goat wanders into the pottery stall with a flower crown on its head. Inside the crown, an enchanted petal with subtle lust magic. Hera appears instantly, disqualified. Come on, Eros groans. It was barely magical. The goat sneezes glitter. Out. Hera wins, but she doesn't gloat. That night, Melina and Nico sit by a small fire. No spells, no tricks, just shared bread, a warm silence, and a story about rocks that resemble famous philosophers. They were meant to meet. Hera whispers, I just removed the noise. Eros sighs. Fine, you win. But next time, there won't be a next time, she says, smiling. You'll help me instead. Eros pretends to protest, but you see it. The twitch of a smile he's trying to bury. He's having fun. You all return to Olympus, where Alcmaeon is waiting with a scroll stuck in his teeth. It reads, the next match breaks the pattern. You hand it to Hera. She studies it, frowns. What does that mean? You ask. It means, she says softly, we're not playing alone anymore. Above you, the stars realign, but this time, not in a way Hera planned. You're halfway through organizing a banquet seating chart, 3 gods per table, no ex-lovers within 3 columns of each other when Hera storms into the hall, holding a crumpled scroll like it insulted her sandals. She throws it down. It unfolds itself dramatically. You squint. It's a wedding invitation. Dionysus is getting married, Hera says flatly. You pause. To whom? No one knows. You wait for the punchline. It doesn't come. The scroll is elaborate. Wine-stained edges, ivy vines etched in gold, and a riddle as the RSVP. The only confirmed details are the date tomorrow, the location secret vineyard, and the couple's names, Dionysus and TBD. You glance at Eros, who is perched on a couch made of grapes, wide-eyed. I didn't do this, he says, hands raised, which is exactly why it worries me. Hera mutters. Rumors ripple across Olympus like poorly managed prophecy. Dionysus, the god of wine, revelry, and impulsive declarations, has apparently accidentally proposed during a full moon bacchanal, but to whom remains unclear. Historians still argue, Hera says through clenched teeth, whether this was the result of divine fate or just too much fermented honeymead. Fringe texts describe Dionysus as the patron of accidental engagements. There's even a small stone tablet in an Etruscan museum that simply reads, he said forever after the 3rd goblet, you attend the wedding. You have no choice. It could derail the entire balance of current matchings. The venue is chaotic. Rows of satyrs playing mismatched flutes, nymphs throwing flower petals at each other, a centaur officiant reading from a scroll that's on fire. You spot Dionysus in the violet robe, already drunk on either love or logistics. Do you know who you're marrying? You whisper. He shrugs, grinning. Not yet. Isn't it exciting? You find Hera pacing behind a pomegranate bush. This is a trap. She hisses, someone's baiting us. The guests arrive. Artemis looking annoyed, Apollo looking smug, Poseidon wearing seaweed like a boutonniere. Even the Gorgon sisters show up, exchanging polite nods with Hephaestus, who looks surprisingly calm. Then the music stops. Everyone turns. A figure approaches the altar. Tall, hooded, gliding, not walking. The kind of presence that makes olive trees lean back respectfully. The figure removes the hood. You expect a muse, a nymph, a prank. You get a mirror. No, really, it's a living mirror, rippling like water, reflecting Dionysus back at himself. Meet Echo, he says proudly. She's very supportive. You stare. Hera stares. Eros screams laughs into his toga. Echo doesn't speak. She just mimics. Every gesture, every smile, every vow Dionysus recites. She mirrors it back to him. I've finally found someone who understands me, Dionysus says tearfully. No, Hera interrupts. You found someone who agrees with you. That's different. Echo waves. The centaur pronounces them interim bound in celebration, which seems vague enough to count. The reception is oddly beautiful. Vines grow into arches, goblets refill themselves, and the music finally finds harmony. Dionysus twirls with Echo under a sky streaked with star wine and laughter. You lean close to Hera. Is it real? She shrugs. He's happy. For now, and Echo's harmless. Unless someone tries to argue, you glance back. Dionysus is arguing with himself. Echo nods sympathetically. Later, you catch Alcmaeon chewing on a napkin. He coughs up a message written on grape skin. The wedding was staged, not by us. You bring it to Hera. She reads it. Pale gold flashes in her eyes. Someone wanted us watching this, she whispers, while they moved a different piece. You look out over the party. Everyone is here. Everyone but Persephone. Hera breathes. The goddess of spring and shadow is missing, which means something important just shifted in the underworld. You suddenly feel very sober. The wedding ends in applause and confetti. Dionysus dips Echo dramatically. Echo dips back. Everyone cheers, but Hera is already walking away. The match wasn't the point. The distraction was you descend into the underworld with a fig in your pocket, 3 coins in your pouch, and a goat trailing you like he owns the place. Hera doesn't usually travel here, not unless someone's really crossed a line. The river Styx is quieter than usual. Charon rows without commentary. The fog hangs heavy, like it's listening. Hera stands beside you in absolute silence, her robes somehow untouched by the ash and gloom. Alcmaeon. The goat sneezes once ominously. You reach the gates of the Shadow Court. They're open. That's the first bad sign. Where's Hades? You whisper. Gone. Hera replies, and he didn't tell anyone where. You step into a chamber lit only by bioluminescent moss and the occasional groan of a mourning willow. Persephone's throne is empty. Her crown rests on its side, tipped like someone left in a hurry. But carved into the stone in fresh scratches is one word: unbound. You glance at Hera. She left him, Hera says softly. Historians still argue. She continues, whether Persephone ever loved Hades or merely tolerated his symmetry. Fringe myths describe her as the goddess of compromise, always balancing above and below, but this isn't balance. This is a fracture. She never missed Dionysus's parties. You say she never misses anything. Hera replies, which means this absence was deliberate. The deeper you go, the stranger things get. Dead vines bloom without sunlight. Scrolls shuffle themselves out of place. Spirits whisper to you, but not in fear, in warning. In one chamber, you find a cracked mirror. A reflection flickers not yours. Persephone, dressed not in black or green, but red, standing beside a robed figure with no face, only smoke. You call Hera. She stares at it for a long time. That's not the underworld. She murmurs, that's somewhere else. A second goat arrives. You don't question it. Alcmaeon bleats and paws at the wall until a loose stone falls away, revealing a hidden passage. Inside, old scrolls sealed with golden wax. The wax bears a symbol you've never seen before. 3 interlocked hearts, all upside down. Hera breaks the seal. Her hands shake. Inside is a map. Not of the Olympus, not of Earth, of pairings, all of them. Lines drawn across time and space, mortal and immortal, God and concept. Some pairs are crossed out, some are reversed. Whoever made this, Hera whispers, isn't just playing with the gods. They're rewriting the rules. You glance at the bottom. One line glows faintly. Persephone. The destination isn't written. It's simply labeled the garden between. You ask if it's a place. No, Hera says, it's a decision. Eros appears suddenly, not flying, walking, grim-faced. I can't find her either, he says, and something's off. I haven't been able to feel her thread in days. You ask if he can normally sense love that easily. He nods. Not love, openings, doorways where it begins. Hers are gone. You hear a distant sound, metal clinking against stone, a throne moving, the whisper of vines rearranging themselves. She left the underworld, but not alone. Later, Hera lights a silver flame and tosses the map into it. We're done reacting. She says, now we act, but how? You ask. We bring her back. Hera says, and we find whoever's editing the strings. The goat coughs up a thorny crown. Alcmaeon never coughs twice for no reason. You carry it back with you. You don't know why. Not yet. But Hera's matchmaking scroll is no longer a list. It's a target. Somewhere beyond Olympus, love is being turned into a weapon. And Persephone might be the first to fire it. Olympus is unusually quiet. Too quiet for a place where most arguments end in meteor showers or musical numbers. You walk the corridor of marble and cloud your sandals echoing just enough to remind you you're still tethered to reality barely. Hera is at her altar, burning jasmine and writing with deliberate calm. Tonight, she says without looking up, we shift tactics. You glance at the half-burned scroll beside her, matchmaking by moonlight. It reads, you frown. That's not a strategy. That's a perfume. Hera finally meets your eyes. It's what I do when all else fails. You sit, she explains, when divine order begins to unravel. When threads tangle beyond repair, she turns to the moon. Not for light, but for shadow, for subtlety. Matchmaking in dreams, whispers in sleep. The type of influence you never remember, but wake up different. The moon, she says, is where hope hides when the gods stop listening. She shows you her tools, a silver thread, a drop of lethe water, a fig leaf soaked in olive oil, and regret. Each night, I choose one pairing, she says, and I alter a single moment. A hesitation erased, a memory adjusted, a gaze that lingers instead of looking away. You glance at the parchment. Tonight's target, Ares and Hestia. You nearly choke. Ares, you say, the god of battle, and Hestia, goddess of quiet kitchens. They're both lonely. Hera replies, one hides in noise, the other in stillness. Historians still argue whether this pairing ever existed or was just symbolic, a literary contrast between fire that destroys and fire that warms. But Hera isn't working in metaphors tonight. She lights a silver candle. The flame flickers sideways. You follow her out to the moon garden, a private sphere that floats just above the clouds. Here, flowers bloom only under moonlight. Lavender, datura, night jasmine. The air smells like secrets. In the center, a pool that reflects not your face, but your longings. You see Ares, pacing in a war room lined with spears, unable to sleep. His armor's off, his heart's exposed. He mumbles a name he doesn't understand. Then Hestia, sitting beside an unlit hearth, holding a loaf of bread she baked for no one in particular. They're both alone. Hera steps to the pool and drops the lethe water. The surface ripples, then the silver thread, then the fig leaf. The pool flashes once, then returns to stillness. You look inside. Now Ares is walking toward a cottage you've never seen before. It has no door, just warmth. He doesn't knock. He just knows. Hestia opens her eyes, as if remembering something from a dream. You turn to Hera. You didn't make them fall in love. No, she says. I just gave them permission to look. That's the moon's magic. It doesn't bind. It opens. Eros appears behind you, quiet for once. This is new. He whispers. No. Hera replies. This is old. Older than arrows and poems. This is what came before seduction. The sacred pause before desire. You sit beside the pool, mesmerized. In the distance, you hear a forge slowing. Hephaestus, maybe, or someone else letting go of an old obsession. The stars above shift into a new shape, a hearth cradled by a sword. Hera notices. She smirks, one thread at a time. You ask if she'll do this again tomorrow. She nods, until the pattern reveals itself, or until the dreamers stop answering. You glance at Alcmaeon, who is curled up under a moonflower, snoring softly. Even the goat dreams tonight. Later, you walk back alone. Ares may never admit his longing. Hestia may never say the word love. But some pairings don't require declarations. They just are. And somewhere in the dreamscape, a soldier and a hearthkeeper sit in silence together, and the silence means something. It's inventory day, not scrolls or arrows relationships. Hera stands in the middle of the grand dome of pairings, quill behind her ear, a scroll so long it loops like a snake around the marble floor, and the faint crackle of divine tension in the air. Today, she announces, we review the results. The annual Olympus Love Audit has begun. You're handed a clipboard, gilded, naturally, and told to listen more than you write. The gods, it seems, need to vent before they're judged. Each divine pair official, rumored or still complicated, must submit a status scroll. Some come embossed in gold, others are barely legible under coffee stains and suspicious tears. You begin at table 1. Aphrodite and Ares. Aphrodite twirls her hair around her finger. We're currently on a break, she says, which is usually coded for emotionally eviscerating each other through interpretive dance. Ares, polishing a helmet aggressively, adds, we're communicating more through silence. And fire, you scribble. Progress equal debatable. At table 2, Apollo and the Gorgon. Things are shockingly stable. We trade poems, Apollo says, and she critiques them without turning me to stone. She corrected my metaphor last night, he adds proudly. Said comparing her eyes to volcanoes was scientifically unsound. The Gorgon nods silently, a snake blinking in agreement. Progress owes hopeful. At table 3, Artemis sits alone. No pairings, she says before you even speak. But I accepted a picnic invitation. You blink. With who? Me, she replies. It was excellent. I brought olives and left early. You write. Progress owes sovereign. Poseidon shows up late, trailing sea foam, and 2 eels that won't stop kissing each other. Thalia's great, he says, tossing a pearl into the suggestion urn. We're sinking tides now, emotionally. Hera claps once. We're ahead of schedule. You reach Hephaestus, who hands in his scroll without a word. It simply reads, Callista prefers writing to talking. So do I. We read in silence now. I made her a quill. She made me stop apologizing for limping. You stare at the scroll a little too long before adding, progress indescribable but real. Eros. He submits a scroll that flutters and hums and briefly tries to kiss you. You swat it down. I matched 2 mortals last week, he says, both allergic to figs. They now run a fruitless cafe. You write, progress, oh chaotic good. Then, a twist. Hermes steps forward with a sealed envelope. Hera eyes him. Since when are you filling one out? He shrugs. Tried that dating a dream spirit thing again. Didn't work out. But I did get some closure and a decent playlist. You make a note. Progress of Spotify certified grief healing. Alchemian. The goat arrives last. Somehow, he drops a scroll soaked in mead and chewed on one corner. It simply says, love is a forest. But most people only ever notice the path. Hera reads it twice. She doesn't smile, but she does whisper, thank you, without saying to whom. The scrolls are stacked, tallied, glowing when true, flickering when confused, and bursting into song when someone's lying. Ares flares into I will survive again. Historians still argue. You murmur to Hera whether the audit is divine wisdom or just glorified gossip. She grins. Why not both? As the last candle burns low and the scrolls begin folding themselves into sleeping birds, you ask what she's learned from all this. That love, she says, rarely stays where we place it, but it always leaves a mark. You sit together in the empty hall, surrounded by glowing embers of declarations, flirtations, regrets. Tomorrow, the gods will return to being divine. Tonight, they were just trying, and somehow that matters. You're standing on the edge of Olympus, staring down into a garden that no one built. It wasn't planted. It wasn't summoned. It simply appeared. A grove with no entrance. A sky with no stars. Vines that pulse faintly like veins. Twined around stone statues of people who were never quite in love, but almost. Hera calls it the garden between. It exists in the pause, she says, between yes and no, between leaving and staying. You think of Persephone. You think of that scratched word on her throne, unbound. Now you understand. The garden between isn't a place you go. It's a place you become. It's where hearts hesitate, where desire turns back to thought, where something meant to bloom doesn't. And tonight, Hera returns to it. She moves slowly, gown brushing the ground like fog. Alcmeon follows at a respectful distance, wearing a wreath of dandelions you definitely didn't put there. You arrive at a clearing. In the center, a small, round pool, but it reflects nothing. Not sky, not face, not future. Hera kneels beside it. I used to come here, she says, when Zeus loved too loudly, when love felt like a punishment instead of a promise. She holds up a scroll, not for matchmaking, not this time. It's blank. I thought I was fixing things, she says softly, putting people in place. But love isn't placement, it's movement. And I forgot that. You ask why she still tries. Because something inside us believes, she whispers, that even gods deserve not to be alone. The garden responds. A soft wind, a vine uncurling, and then footsteps. Persephone, no longer cloaked in darkness, but in a robe of woven roots and bone-pale blossoms. Her gaze is clear, calm, unafraid. I wasn't stolen, she says. Not by Hades, not by love. I chose. Hera nods. And what do you choose now? Persephone glances around the garden. To stay between, not queen, not captive, just me. She holds out her hand, and Hera, surprisingly, takes it. I won't pair you, Hera says. Good. Persephone replies, I'm not a name on a scroll. They sit beside the reflectionless pool, and for once, no one speaks. Eros appears behind you, wings folded, unusually still. So that's it, he murmurs. She won't return to the throne. No, you say, she'll build her own. You realize now, the story wasn't about matchmaking. Not really. It was about allowing love to evolve, to exist in unexpected forms, to walk away, to stay when you mean it, to forgive when no one asked. Later, back on Olympus, Hera finally hangs up her scroll. She doesn't burn it, doesn't lock it away. She just stops writing. Eros slides beside her. You're not done, are you? No, she says, just resting. And you look out over the edge of the mountain, where night wraps itself gently around stars, still learning how to shine. You've seen gods bicker, sulk, flirt, rage, dance, weep, and whisper. You've watched them fail. You've watched them try again. Because even immortality doesn't protect you from needing connection. Even immortality doesn't make you immune to the pause before I love you. And somewhere, in the garden between, a new vine blooms, no names attached, no fate assigned, just possibility. So now, as the night grows quieter, and the gods begin to drift into their own sacred dreams, you lie back on your pillow and let it all settle. The feasts, the scrolls, the arguments about whether flaming arrows count as flirting, the quiet smiles, the echoing footsteps, the lovers who missed their moment but kept showing up anyway. You remember the mirror bride, the goat with too many secrets, the librarian who never blinked, the goddess who refused to be named, and you remember Hera not just as the queen of Olympus, but as someone who still believes love can be tended like a flame, no matter how often it flickers. The stars above you now form no constellations, just soft, drifting patterns, like dust on a late summer windowsill. There's no grand lesson, no moral engraved in marble, only this, that even gods pause, even gods question, even gods wonder if they're lovable. And that maybe, just maybe, the most divine thing you can do is try anyway. So take a breath. Let your thoughts wander through moonlit scrolls and sleepy gardens. Let your heart slow to the rhythm of starlight through fig trees. You're safe now, wrapped in myths, laughter, and the soft hush of stories that never quite end. Sleep well, traveler of Olympus. Tomorrow waits patiently, but for now, you rest.